Tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
On the night of March 8, 2014, a Malaysia Airlines flight carrying 239 people simply vanished. No distress call, no wreckage, just silence.
5 days after flight MH370 vanished, but the authorities know almost nothing about what happened to the airliner, and that in their search for it, they are just guessing.
For more than a decade, nations have spent over $200 million scouring the ocean floor with some of the most advanced technology in history, and still, nothing.
Deep sea exploration company Ocean Infinity is carrying the hopes of the families of 239 passengers and crew.
But now, a retired British engineer named Richard Godfrey claims he has cracked the code using faint, almost invisible radio signals that no one else had considered. Some experts call his method impossible. Others say it could finally solve aviation's greatest riddle. If Godfrey is right, we may at last know where MH370 lies. So what exactly did he find? Could his method really stand up to scrutiny? And, most haunting of all, is the wreckage really sitting there, waiting to be discovered? Let's rewind the story. The night the plane vanished. Most of us think we know the story of MH370. A plane takes off, flies into the night, and then disappears. But that simple version barely scratches the surface. The truth is stranger, more chilling, and far more complex. It was just past midnight on March 8th. Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, a Boeing 777, lifted off from Kuala Lumpur, bound for Beijing. On board were 239 souls, families, tourists, business travelers, even children. For the first 30 minutes, everything was routine. Smooth climb, clear chatter with air traffic control. Nothing unusual. At 1:19 a.m., the last words came from the cockpit. The pilot's calm voice, "Good night, Malaysian 370. 2 minutes later, the plane's transponder went dark, the very system that broadcasts its identity and altitude to civilian radar. To the outside world, the jet seemed to vanish, but in reality, it hadn't. The secret radar trail. Civilian radar lost MH370, but Malaysia's military radar, which works differently, more like bouncing a flashlight beam, picked up a mysterious blip. Investigators later confirmed it was almost certainly MH370. Only now, the plane was no longer heading to Beijing. It had made a sharp, deliberate turn back toward Malaysia, cutting across the peninsula and out toward the Andaman Sea. For another hour, the military tracked it, until at 2:22 a.m., it vanished northwest of Penang Island. Imagine being in that radar room, watching a passenger jet you know is full of people simply walk off the map. No distress call, no explanation, just gone. The ghostly handshakes. But even then, the jet wasn't silent. Unbeknownst to the world, its satellite system was still whispering into space. The Inmarsat satellite high above the Indian Ocean kept receiving faint pings, handshakes between its system and the aircraft. These were never meant to track planes. They were just background maintenance checks. Yet, after MH370 vanished, they became the only evidence of its flight for the next 6 hours. There were 7 handshakes in total. Using delays in the signals and tiny frequency shifts, engineers mapped out arcs, vast, sweeping curves across the globe. One led north, across Asia. The other plunged south into the Indian Ocean. The northern path was dismissed. Too many radars, too many militaries watching. Someone would have seen a rogue Boeing. That left only the south. Thus was born the infamous 7th Arc, a lonely curve in the ocean where investigators believed the plane had run out of fuel and drifted down. The most expensive search in history. And so began a search unlike anything before. Ships, planes, and deep-sea drones combed an area of 120,000 square kilometers, roughly the size of Pennsylvania. Hundreds of millions of dollars were spent. The seabed was mapped in exquisite detail, and yet, nothing. Well, almost nothing. Over the years, fragments washed ashore. A wing flap in Réunion Island, interior paneling in Mozambique, more pieces in Madagascar, each one confirmed to belong to MH370. But these scraps raised more questions than they answered. Where was the main wreck? Why hadn't the search zones revealed anything? Was the seventh arc even correct? The official narrative, that Captain Zahari hijacked his own plane in a bizarre act of murder-suicide, began to look shaky. The flaws in the official story. On paper, the pilot self-harm theory sounds neat. Zahari switches off communications, depressurizes the cabin, and flies south until the fuel runs out. But the evidence doesn't fit. First, the final satellite data didn't suggest a calm glide into the sea. It hinted at a violent nose-first plunge, descents of up to 15,000 feet per minute. That's not controlled. That's catastrophic. Second, the wreckage fragments themselves told a story of violent impact. The flaperon recovered in Réunion showed signs of flutter damage, the kind caused by violent shaking at high speeds. Flaps were retracted. The plane was in cruise mode, not configured for landing. Finally, the search itself raised doubts. If the seventh arc was so precise, why did years of sonar scans come up empty? Could it be that the assumptions, the fuel models, the autopilot theories, the tidy southward track were all wrong? By 2017, the official search was suspended. Families were left without answers, and the mystery grew darker. Enter Richard Godfrey. When governments gave up, one man refused. Richard Godfrey, a retired British aerospace engineer, decided to approach the puzzle differently. While others stared at satellite data, he asked, what if the clues were hidden in radio waves? That's when he turned to a little-known system called WSPR, Weak Signal Propagation Reporter. All over the world, thousands of amateur radio hobbyists transmit faint signals, less than a watt of power, which bounce off the atmosphere and travel vast distances. Each transmission is logged in a massive online database. Godfrey realized something radical. If a massive airplane slices through one of these signals, it leaves a tiny disturbance. And those disturbances are recorded. So he combed through billions of entries in the WSPR database, cross-checking anomalies with MH370's suspected timeline. Slowly, patterns began to emerge. The WSPR trail. Godfrey identified around 130 anomalies from that night. Plotted together, they formed a path. The trail began exactly where Malaysian radar lost the jet. Then it curved southwest, before turning south across the Indian Ocean. Precisely the trajectory long suspected, but with sharper detail. And this trail didn't just fade away. It ended at a single point. 29.128 degrees south, 99.934 degrees east. That spot lies about 1,500 kilometers west of Perth, Australia, in waters nearly 4,000 meters deep. Crucially, it's an area never touched by any official search. For the first time in years, someone had provided a specific, data-driven location, not a vague arc, but a set of coordinates, putting the theory to the test. Numbers are one thing, proof is another. Godfrey took his work to the University of Liverpool, whose experts had helped locate Air France Flight 447 after its 2009 crash in the Atlantic. Their analysis was startling. They confirmed that the WSPR anomalies matched MH370's timeline almost perfectly, within just a few minutes of the known satellite pings. No other aircraft could have been responsible. When the data was run through Bayesian models, the probability of the wreck being near Godfrey's coordinates came out at 74%. For the first time, the search had a high probability target zone. The pushback. Not everyone was convinced. Critics argued that WSPR was never designed to track aircraft. True. But as Godfrey pointed out, neither were X-rays designed to diagnose disease, or GPS to find coffee shops. Science often thrives on repurposed tools. Others accused him of moving the target, since his early calculations suggested different crash sites. But in science, refining data isn't failure, it's progress. And for more than a year, his target has remained steady. The strongest criticism remains. No wreckage has been found at the coordinates. But here, too, the evidence leans his way. Oceanographers running drift simulations traced debris found in Africa back toward Godfrey's hotspot. The match was uncanny. The next search. For years, MH370 has felt unsolvable, but that may be about to change. The private company Ocean Infinity, which led a major 2018 search, is returning to the hunt. Armed with fleets of autonomous underwater vehicles capable of scanning 6,000 meters down, they've signed a new deal with Malaysia's government. The search zone? A 15,000 square kilometer box centered precisely on Godfrey's coordinates. The deal is no find, no fee. In other words, Ocean Infinity only gets paid if they locate the wreckage. With their advanced sonar drones, they could sweep the entire zone in just a month. Are we finally close to the truth? It has been more than 10 years since MH370 disappeared, leaving families broken and the world bewildered. For a decade, the mystery has invited wild theories: hijackings, military shootdowns, even abductions. But now, for the first time, the evidence is converging. A trail of faint radio signals, a hotspot confirmed by drift analysis, a dedicated search with the best technology on Earth. The question is no longer whether MH370 can be found. It's whether we are finally, at last, about to close the book on one of the greatest mysteries of our time. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any new videos. Thanks for watching.